I almost sold my XRP last week, almost. Then I stumbled onto something that stopped me cold, a hint of a secret plan by some big players. Let's just say, if what I learned is true, selling my XRP now would be like selling a winning lottery ticket for just a few bucks. Curious yet? Well, stick with me here. This story gets pretty wild. Alright, so picture this. I'm hanging out in our free educational Discord server. The link, by the way, is in the description. It's where we kind of talk crypto rumors and strategies. And someone blurts out, "Never sell your XRP. A supply shock is coming." Now, I nearly spit out my coffee. It sounded so over the top, like these kind of doom and gloom predictions or a kind of late night infomercial catchphrase. You know the kind, right? Act now or lose out forever. Now, my skeptic alarm went off. Right? I've held XRP for years through insane ups and downs, and I've heard plenty of wild claims. At first, I just rolled my eyes and then kind of typed out a snarky response. But then I caught myself. What if there's something to this one? What if I'm about to make the biggest mistake selling too early? Now, that nagging question got under my skin, so I went down the rabbit hole to investigate this whole XRP supply shock theory. And man, I'm glad that I did. So, the open loop is here, right? Our big banks quietly hoarding XRP and tricking the rest of us to giving up our stash. Am I crazy or for even maybe entertaining this? Maybe. But here is what I found, and you can decide for yourself. Let's start with the source of that kind of bold claim. This is a guy named 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗂, right? And is the co-founder of something called Black Swan Capitalist. And recently, on a podcast, he basically shouted from the digital rooftops that an XRP supply shock is inevitable. In other words, never sell your XRP. Pretty bold, right? Well, this dude is essentially saying, one day there will be a mad scramble for XRP and those who sold will kick themselves. Naturally, I'm thinking, okay, why? First off, what the heck is a supply shock? Simple terms, of course. It's kind of when demand for something suddenly overwhelms its supply, shooting the price through the roof. So imagine a game of musical chairs with 100 people, but only 80 chairs, right? When the music stops, 20 people are left freaking out with nowhere to sit. Now, imagine if someone rich, giant, quietly kind of removed half of these chairs when nobody was actually looking. Next round, 100 people, but there's only 40 chairs left. Absolute chaos, right? People would pay a fortune for a seat. Now, that's a supply shock. 𝗕𝗪𝗪 believes that this could happen with XRP. One day there won't be nearly enough XRP available for everyone who wants in, because a few big players have snatched up most of the chairs, and when that happens, Moon City for the price. Okay, it's a cool story, but who are these big players and why would there be a secret XRP hoarding mission? Well, according to 𝗕𝗪𝗪, we're kind of talking about the likes of JPMorgan, BlackRock, the titans of finance. Now, he claims that they've been quietly accumulating XRP for years, while us regular folk get scared off by price dips and bad news. So let's think about it then. Every time negative news hits or XRP's price stalls, some retail investors panic sell. Now, 𝗕𝗪𝗪 thinks that that's exactly what the big guys want, to shake out the little guys, scoop up cheap XRP, and do it over and over. It's kind of like a high-stakes poker game. The pros bluff and nudge the amateurs into folding winning hands. And if you're wondering, no, he doesn't have leaked documents or a smoking gun here. He just flat out admits that he's speculating. So that gave me pause. I mean, at least he's honest that this is just a theory and not confirmed fact. But his attitude? It's basically, look, speculation is how you stay ahead of the curve. If you wait for 100% proof, you'll be too late. And you know what? That kind of resonated with me a bit. In crypto, the big moves often happen before the headlines, not after. By the time that CNN or Bloomberg confirm something, the smart money is already in and potentially out. Now, here is where it gets spicy. On that podcast, there was a co-host, David, who dropped a little bombshell of his own. He goes, check this out. The guy in charge of BlackRock's blockchain department right now, he used to work at Ripple. I was like, wait, what? Robert Mitchnick. Probably murdering his name, but that's what it's there as, and I apologize if I have mispronounced it. Anyway, he left Ripple and is now the leading blockchain strategy at BlackRock. Now, when I heard that, a little light bulb went off in my head. Like BlackRock, in case you've been living under a rock, is the world's largest asset manager, and they have had their fingers in pretty much everything. And Ripple is, of course, the company associated with XRP. So having a former Ripple guy inside BlackRock, I mean, it could be a coincidence, sure. People change jobs all the time, right? But David hinted that this might be an indication of something deeper. It's like finding out that the head chief at your kind of favorite vegan restaurant used to work for a barbecue joint. It raises an eyebrow, doesn't it, right? Makes you kind of wonder if BlackRock has been eyeing XRP or Ripple's tech on the down low. 𝗕𝗗𝗪𝗧 takes that idea and, well, runs with it. He suggests that BlackRock and JPMorgan might actually be keeping XRP's price suppressed intentionally. Now, why on earth would they want to do that? Well, to accumulate more at lower prices before the rest of the world wakes up, at least so he says. And here's the kicker. He thinks that these institutions are using Bitcoin and Ethereum as decoys and kind of ulterior motive. The theory goes like this, right? They hype up BTC and ETH, maybe even support regulatory moves that favor those two, so that the big money feels safe entering crypto through Bitcoin, BTC, and Ethereum, ETH. It's kind of like inviting someone into your house through the front door. Meanwhile, XRP is chilling quietly in the back room. Once all of that regulated capital is in crypto, guess what? These institutions can redirect it into XRP when the time is right. It's pretty sneaky, right? Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like a full-on conspiracy theory. I thought the same. It's a pretty elaborate scheme, isn't it? Almost like a Ocean's 11 styled heist, but for crypto. Now, use one hand to distract them, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Look over here, SEC approved ETF, shiny, shiny. While, of course, the other hand scoops up XRP before anyone even notices it, right? Is it really plausible? Well, I'll be real with you. I don't have secret bank memos to back any of this up. It could be just a kind of tall tale, but consider the characters here. These are mega banks and Wall Street giants that we're talking about. Do they do sneaky stuff to maintain an edge? Absolutely yes, right? If there's one thing that I've learned over the years, it's that these institutions, they never sit idle when there's a paradigm shift happening. Once crypto, at least, crypto could be the next big thing in finance and the next phase of financial innovation, as 𝗕𝗗𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 kind of puts it. And you kind of bet that the big players aren't going to be watching from the sidelines. Well, they'll play any kind of angle possible, even angles that would send us mere mortals to jail if we tried. I mean, they do spend hundreds of millions on fines every year after all. Now, speaking of sneaky angles, let's talk about evidence of market manipulation, because as wild as the XRP conspiracy sounds, we know that market manipulation is real. Now, David, the co-host, pointed out something that kind of really hit home for me. In 2020, JPMorgan got hit with a $920 million fine for manipulating the precious metals market. Yeah, nearly $1 billion paid in penalties. Sounds huge, right? But David goes, do you know how many billions upon billions they made from doing that? Right, $920 million is the cost of doing business for these guys. Now, I had to kind of rewind that part of the podcast to just let it sink in. These guys literally profited way more than the fine. So to them, that was fine. It was like a parking ticket after robbing a bank. It's no biggie, right? And if they pulled that off in the metals market, why would crypto be any different? Now, David speculated the very same thing. He wouldn't be surprised if JPMorgan and friends are using similar tactics to influence crypto prices, including XRP. So let's think about it. Stirring up fear, uncertainty, doubt, or even quietly trading in ways that nudges the price where they want it. It's not even illegal if done cleverly. And it is, and at least if it is, they get caught, well, they can just pay a fine from their couch cushion money. It's harsh, I know, but it is true. Now, here's another piece. Market sentiment. It's one of the biggest kind of tools for manipulation. Have you noticed how when XRP gets a little bit of positive news, there's often a louder negative voice somewhere telling you that it's garbage, or just silence from the mainstream media? It's kind of like clockwork, and David said something on this point too. That sentiment can easily distort perception. One week everyone is screaming that XRP is dead, SEC is gonna kill it. Then suddenly, XRP wins a legal battle and those voices go quiet until the next scare. It's a roller coaster that can make the average holder a bit queasy. But David's advice here is, and I'm taking this to heart, was to focus on the fundamentals. Like, know what you hold, he reminded us, right? And that was right there is kind of gold. So let's kind of briefly remind ourselves, what do we hold with XRP? We hold a cryptocurrency that aims to be a bridge for global finance, super fast transactions, tiny fees used by companies and maybe banks to move money across borders in seconds. Banks and institutions have been testing and using Ripple's tech, which uses XRP in some cases. They've been doing this for years now. Now, those fundamentals, they have not changed just because the price dances up and down. If anything, they've gotten stronger. New partnerships, new adoption in certain corridors, all of the good stuff. All right, I'm about to dive even deeper, but let me hit pause here for a crucial reality check before anyone thinks that I'm giving you financial advice or guaranteed predictions. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your own responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Phew, I'm glad that we got that out there. If you've still watching after that big scary disclaimer, kudos to you, right? You're in this for the knowledge and not expecting magic get-rich-quick promises. And I respect that. By the way, speaking of things like accumulating XRP or any crypto, well, if you do decide to trade or invest, consider using reputable exchanges. I personally use Blowfin to nibble on some crypto here and there, and my affiliate link is in the description and it supports the channel here. So if you do use that, thank you very much. Now, I also have an account on BitGet for some altcoin adventures too. Yes, the affiliate link for that one is also down below. They're both solid options that I've tried and tested myself. And any referral bonuses really do help keep this channel content coming. So if you do sign up, trade using those, I would like to thank you all very much in advance. All right, so that's the shilling done. Let's get back to the story. So where were we? Yes. Silence around XRP speaks volumes. Now that's a direct quote from 𝗕𝗓𝗪, and it's been ringing in my head ever since I heard it. Now, he was talking about something super interesting, a chat that he had with a JPMorgan branch manager. Apparently, this manager let slip that the bank is gearing up to allow borrowing and lending with crypto as collateral. You could take out a loan and maybe use your Bitcoin or Ethereum as the thing you put up for security. Now, JPMorgan actually put out a public report about this plan. And in that kind of report, they explicitly mentioned Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then add a generic and other digital assets. Now, what's missing there? Well, XRP. They didn't actually say X word anywhere, right? Completely omitted, if you will. If you're neutral, you might think, so what, right? Maybe they only care about Bitcoin and Ethereum. But 𝗕𝗓𝗪 sees this as a deliberate, strategic omission. Like, if XRP was truly irrelevant, then they could have thrown it, in the list to kind of sound maybe comprehensive. Now, the fact that they didn't even utter its name, instead just kind of lumped it into other assets, could mean that they're quietly working on XRP, but keeping it hush-hush. It's kind of like, maybe Voldemort in Harry Potter, right? That kind of which shall not be named. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but, I got goosebumps when I heard the silence speaks volumes. So what if JPMorgan doesn't want to kind of tip their hand about XRP? What if they're deliberately keeping it out of the spotlight while they accumulate or prepare infrastructure for it in the background? Now, if that is true, by the time that Jamie Dimon or any kind of big shot finally says, yes, we hold XRP or we use XRP now, it might be just too late for regular people to buy in cheaply. Now, the price could explode overnight because suddenly every institution and their mother will feel safe jumping in. That's the idea of the supply shock moment. So let's put it into perspective. Al-Jahar, the biggest institutions are, he says that they are years ahead of retail speculators. Years. So they plan in decades, right? We retailers, we often plan in the next week or next month. So let's kind of be honest here. So if these giants are accumulating and positioning now, they're looking at a long game that most of us haven't even considered. So by the time that we read about it in Forbes or the Wall Street Journal, they're actually already on to the next move. It kind of makes you want to think ahead, right? And it kind of sure got me thinking, right? Instead of complaining when Moon, when Lambo, I started asking myself, what's the end game here? And am I positioned for it? And there are more clues outside of the US too. Check this out. SBI Holdings in Japan, a massive financial group, has been buddy-buddy with Ripple for years. They even had a partnership back in 2022, and a lot of us kind of forgot about it, myself kind of included. But Al-Jahar pointed out that this partnership is now resurfacing with fresh significance. Why? Because reports indicate that SBI will use a Ripple USD stablecoin called RLUSD in early 2026. In plain English, it's a huge bank in Japan that plans to roll out a stablecoin using Ripple's tech. And who knows, maybe XRP will be involved under the hood as a bridge asset. Maybe not, but it shows that Ripple's network, and by extension XRP's ecosystem, is moving into real-world big money use, right? That's not all, right? Because David, remember the co-host earlier, right, added that SBI was an early investor in Ripple and likely holds a bunch of XRP, possibly even in escrow. So they're deeply tied into Ripple's long-term plans. They wouldn't be doing all of this if they didn't see something huge in the future. I mean, banks, they don't just experiment with random tech for fun, not at this scale. They clearly think that Ripple, and maybe XRP, will play a key role in the financial system that they're building. And this all ties back to how underestimated XRP is. Now, a lot of crypto traders treat XRP just like the oddball cousin, the one that's always at the family gatherings but nobody's really talking about. Price-wise, it's often kind of lagging the hype of other coins. Meme coins get 100x pumps, Bitcoin steals headlines, Ethereum is the golden child of DeFi, and XRP is just there, right? Steadily doing its own thing. But David kind of nailed it when he said that many investors underestimate XRP's role. He called it the kind of literal backbone of the new digital economy. So let's think about the weight of that statement, the backbone, right? If he's right, XRP isn't just another altcoin, is it? It's the infrastructure. It's the plumbing of a future financial world where value moves as freely as information does on the internet. And if that's even 10% true, then yeah, a supply shock makes sense. So, because everyone, of course, will need a little bit of that backbone when it comes, at least when the time does come, and there might not be enough to go around without paying a premium. Now, after gathering all of these little breadcrumbs, the speculation about BlackRock and JPMorgan, the job-hopping clue with the Ripple guy at BlackRock, the possible price suppression scheme, the proof that JPMorgan has manipulated markets before, the branch manager's tip about XRP being deliberately unmentioned, the SBI stablecoin adoption, and the idea that XRP could be at least fundamental to a new economy. After piecing all of this together, I have to say that my perspective has changed, right? It feels like I've been solving a mystery here, and all of the clues point to one thing. XRP is much more of a bigger deal behind the scenes than anyone is actually openly admitting. And if that is true, then holding it while the big boys play their accumulation game might be the smartest or luckiest thing that I do. But let me be clear here, I'm not here to spread hopium or tell you that XRP will buy you a mansion next year. I'm just a guy who went looking for answers because I didn't want to be the fool who sells right before a rocket launch. And everything that I found tells me, don't let go of that ticket. I mean, I actually hold XRP and have done for many years, and trust me here, I've been tempted to throw in the towel a dozen times. I get exhausted. The wait, the drama, the trolls on Twitter saying XRP is a banker's scam or a dead coin. But now I've got this picture in my head of these powerful institutions quietly smiling every time we hit a slump because they get to grab more XRP on the cheap. And I, for one, don't want to give them their satisfaction. So if there's even a chance that a supply shock is coming, then I want to be on the side that's holding, not on the side that's sold out for pennies. Maybe all of this is just one grand coincidence, maybe not. But here's the thing, I'm willing to be wrong and to look a little crazy right now if it means that there's a chance that I'll be right later. If I'm wrong, worst case, I held an asset that didn't moon and I can live with that. It's money that I've mentally written off as a long-term bet. But if I'm right, and if 𝗕𝗪𝗪 is right, then a lot of people are going to wake up one day scrambling to buy back into XRP at multiples of today's prices. And there will be no sellers left willing to part with their stash. That's the supply crunch, the day that XRP's liquidity dries up because it's all locked away in institutional vaults or the strong hands of believers. And that, my friends, would be one for the history books. So, what do you think? Am I drinking the Kool-Aid here? Or does this XRP supply shock narrative strike a chord with you too? It's okay to be skeptical, heck. I started skeptical. A healthy dose of doubt keeps us a bit rational. But I'd like to hear your take. Drop a comment, or better yet, hop into our Discord and chat with me there. It's a free educational community. The link's in the description, as I mentioned, and we hash out stuff like this all the time. And I'm genuinely curious how you all see it. Maybe, you have counter arguments, or maybe even more evidence supporting the idea. If so, share it. At the end of the day, and this is just me reflecting, sometimes investing feels like a puzzle. You get pieces of news, odd clues, gut feelings, and you have to decide what picture they actually form, if any at all. Now my gut and these clues are telling me that XRP's story is far from over. In fact, it might just be getting started here in a big way behind closed doors. And if a tsunami of demand is coming, then I'm making sure that I've got my surfboard ready. So if you've enjoyed this little adventure down the XRP rabbit hole, do me a solid. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and stick around. I've got plenty more stories to share, and trust me, you won't want to miss the next one. I'll see you in the next video.